Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Hello and welcome back to week 2 on the Swift. And you know, this is the thing I like about my channel and my viewers, is that when I say something on a site and I pose a question, 9 times out of 10 I'll get the answer. It was Andy from Model Base Alpha. I mean, I even have the guy's magnet on my lamp. It's here all the time. Andy was the guy who gave me this kit, and it was only in 2023. I would have sworn it was pre-COVID, but it was not. That just shows you how my sense of the past 5 years has really been skewed. Welcome back. We are painting this week. We are painting this Swift, and it is a collection of whites and grays, and then red, oranges, and reds. And what I'm doing this morning is I am filling in areas with my own mix of Tamiya. This is a very, very, very light gray. This is not white. You can see the difference here, though. It looks a little whiter than the filler primer. And what I'm doing is I'm doing the spots on the tanks here. There are 3 rings on the tanks that are lighter than the red color. And the only way to really achieve those is to paint those white, and then we're going to put white decals over them, or decals over them. But we need to have them on a white base because the decals themselves are not backed in white. I'm sorry, one of them is printed in white. So yeah, this is going to be a white decal, but it's going to have an easier time of life if it's going over a white background. So I'm going to go ahead and paint those. These orange and white hash lines are not. These are the ones that were provided in the kit, and that has to go over a white background. And I think what this is an orange stripe that I've got, just plain old stripe material. So we're going to be cutting up orange stripes and red stripes to go on all of these guys here, all the landing gear and stuff, and to make pinstripes. But I want to give them a base, and then I'll mask them off and paint the reddish orange tanks underneath them. The black decals I'm not worried about. They'll show up black no matter what. But I'm also doing at the same time, I'm also going in some of these cracks and crevices and details where I had the filler primer sprayed last week that I couldn't really get in and around all of the crevices. In a perfect world, you would maybe spray your parts before you even start building them, but not knowing what the final shape of a lot of these parts were going to even be before I finished, it made no sense to paint them first. But what happens is that when you're working with a rattle can, you can't get in and around everything. If you do, it will just build up paint everywhere. So what I did was I hit the broad strokes where I could with the rattle can. And now I'm going in with an airbrush and my lighter gray. And I'm just going in and filling in the areas that I couldn't reach with the airbrush or with the rattle can without building up too many layers. The inner part of this, I taped off the outer to the front and the back because everything in the middle is red, but the front and the back actually that's the only part of it that gets white. There are things like, this door area, that's going to be white. I go ahead and do that, and then we'll mask off that area and get ready to paint the red on top of it. The fronts and the backs of these side pontoons are white-ish, and of course all the landing gear is whitish. But the areas that are going to be red, I'm not all that concerned about getting the white paint on because the red is a very strong color and it will cover itself. But I want to get in here in all these crevices. You can still see raw resin in some spots where I couldn't quite reach with the filler primer. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to get all these little areas in, make sure everything is covered, And then we can start mapping out the red areas. While the majority of the body dries, this is the body, the tanks, and the head. While that's drying, I'm going to start working on my formula for the orange, or for the what I'm calling the red, which is actually a red-orange. Parts of the Swift here. And it's going to be, because this red is such a potent color, and by that I mean it will take over anything you put next to it. It's a very dominating color. What I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with 3/4 orange and 1/4 red, and see where that starts us. Because I think if we start with that much or that little red, it's going to give us something that is going to be nice without, automatically zapping itself over to red. So we're going to start with 6 drops here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to put that whole thing in there. I'm no good at droppage, but we've got some of that in there. Now I'm going to put just a few drops of the red in there. And we're going to start with that, and we're going to see if that's a color we like or whether we need to go redder or not. So this is, for the safety's sake, let's just say this is 3/4 orange and 1/4 red. Now I want to move all of the rest of this off of here, because as I've said, this red is a very potent color, and even the overspray will ruin the rest of your kit. So let's move that out of there. Let's get that out of there. We're going to use just this part right here, and this is going over the gray primer for the light. Okay, that's very orange. That is very orange. We'll go ahead and do the other side of it. It is redder in the cup than it is on the spray. Maybe because I didn't mix it very well in the cup. Here, let me mix that up. And I put the orange in first, so it's going to be at the bottom of the cup. So let me mix that in the cup a little bit more. Okay, now I can tell from doing this that there are places on this build where this color will be appropriate, because there are spots on this build where the orange is more orange than red. But this is coming off as a little too orange. So I feel okay with putting a little red into that. So if we're going to start with if we started with 3/4 orange, 1/4 red, maybe we're going to go to a 60-40, where it's 60% red, or 60% orange and 40% red. So we're going to put a little bit more red in here. Still not getting overly red. It is still more than 50%. Let's just say more than 50% orange at this point. Okay, that's coming out a little redder. That's good. I'm liking that. Let me spin that around and do the other side. We're going to let this dry and come back to it, because it's going to dry a little darker. But the result of that is from a... I got to get the bottom edge of this too, but probably want to move the camera out of the way before I do that. Now that's not to say we're not going to get variations in here where it is more red than others, but what I'm looking for is my good base color. So as far as good base colors go, I think this 60%, I think the 60% orange, 40% red is the way to go. So we're going to let that dry, and we're going to come back to it and reevaluate in a second. But any of the rest of the orange we need to put down. I'm going to need to do some more elaborate masking than this. But I think that's a good start. And like I said, we can go in and put straight red lines on it. Well, we're going to put some red decals on here, and we're going to put some orange decals on there. So it's going to end up showing up anyway in some black decals. We're going to put all kinds of, if you can look in here, sorry, if you can, let me put the brush away. If you can look in here, we've got all kinds of stripage going on from decals. So yeah, that's looking good. Now the next step would be to work on these tanks, but to do that I need to make masking that will keep these stripes white. Well, we certainly have a lot of orangish red, a lot of warm red painted today. We're going to let all this dry because it's only kind. Let it dry. Let it do its thing. And then we're going to come back to it and remask, put some dark stripes in, put some lighter stripes in, and then we'll demask and see how clean we kept the gray. Now I'm expecting to have to repaint a lot of the gray, particularly on the landing gear struts where I know I didn't get enough good tape. But that's a goodly amount of work to get done today. So I think we're in a good spot to let it sit for a bit. We're going to finish the day with a little tiger striping on the tanks. And that's just me using some black wash and a straight edge piece of paper. And just doing little zitzes here with the black wash. And then I went back over it one last time with the reddish orange mix to kind of bring it back up or blend down some of the more egregious stripes. And we're gonna, every time we do that, it gives us a little bit of transparency, another level, a little bit of a wash. So we're gonna let this sit, and I think that's where we're gonna stop for today. Oh, that's coming along nicely. Yes, I went ahead and took the masks off. I'm sorry, I've got one mask left covering that door, that hatch. I haven't gotten that removed yet, but I wanted to see how the contrast was and how the clean lines were looking, and I'm very happy with those. So that's in a good spot. Now tomorrow we are going to mask the orange off, and we're going to clean up the white. This is still very light gray. This is not white yet, so there'll be some highlighting there. And then we can give it a good gloss all over, and start worrying about the decals. Morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. Work is progressing. It's getting a bit messy here, but we are progressing down two parallel tracks. One is we need to start painting the white highlighted parts. We need to mask off these orange bits so that we can paint the white highlights around them. And B, secondarily, and as an adjunct to that, we are working on starting the decals. The decals on the orange parts, the orange tanks here. Now this, for all intents and purposes, is the finished part. All it needs is to have some decals on it. And we've got decals of various colors. We've got orange, we've got white, and we've got black decals. And basically I'm doing this to see how well they're going to show up. I've also put a gloss coat on the tanks because the tanks are more or less finished. This part here has to be painted gray. These have to be painted gray on the front. These will be painted silver. Everything else is detail. I mean, is hand painted detail. It's no more airbrushing on this. These are pre-lightened because we've got decals going over them as well. There's a stripe here that's a black decal, so we're not worried about it going over the orange. But we're going to see how well these decals show up, and that's going to inform our decisions down the road as far as how much more painting needs to get done. When you set everything like this, it's kind of already ready to go. I'm scratching up the paint, and I don't like it here. So I want to do that as few times as possible. But while that's all going on, while this is drying or curing the gloss coat, we can go ahead and start painting the whites on the engines, or on the engine cluster here, and the headpiece. Now, something else I've done is I've silvered the bell. Yes, it's Christmas time in the city. It's silver bells, and you can see some of the defects starting to jump out, which will happen when you put metallics on anything. But you can see where I've got those lines cleaned, but you know, it's never quite going to ever be cleaned. If this were turned aluminum, it would be a different issue. But we need to put this off to dry, and we can start, like I said, we can start doing the whites on these two sections. We need to move this off the deck, this off the deck, and this off the deck so that we can concentrate on those bits. Alrighty, we've got the orange masked off. We're getting ready to spritz some white over the belly of this beast, and then we'll flip her over and do these at the top. But we're going to see how well this goes. Let's get the old brush out. Brush has been nice and clean since we're switching over from orange to white. We want to make sure that it's good and clean. Now, I'm prepared to go back in and repaint by hand some of the orange if I get some overspray in here, because the orange is a strong color. I can repaint that. It's the white that really you have to lay it on a little thick sometimes to get the white to come back up. Now I'm going to dirty this down, particularly the belly part, because you would imagine there would be some thruster kickback and all of that. So the bottom of the landing pads and the bottom of the ship would be dirtier than the top. But right now I'm just kind of leveling the playing field, and then I can go back in and do the color weathering. And I'm really reminded now, when I can see it like this, of how poorly some of these parts were, the resin parts were cast, because I'm seeing a lot of surface bubbles. And by surface bubbles, I mean the ones that are sitting just right below, or just right on the edge of the part. And if you start sanding those, you are asking for a world of trouble on the. It's one of those things that you don't want to. Oh, you don't want to pick that particular scab, for fear that it's going to open up a can of worms. If you want to mix your metaphors, I'm just thinning this white down a little bit. See if I can get it to spray a little better. We'll put that over to the side, and now we'll do some of these. Yeah, it's coming on. That's coming out a little thinner. little too thin. Maybe a little too thin. Put that over there. Actually, let me get a better stand for that. Let me see, I need something that is something I can grab that with. Let's do this. There we go. I can stand that up just like that. Kids, guess what time it is? It's fun with decals time. Yay! I am going to start with some of these decals that came with the kit. And they're the stripy ones. The ones that are meant to go here and here. And the ones that are red and white, I have opted to paint the gray underneath there so that that will show up. And the ones that are black and red, I'm just going to put over top. So we're going to start with these. I've also got some generic stripe, just strip decals that I'm going to be peppering liberally along the length of the... first we're going to start on putting them here. Now, I've also noticed that there is a series of raised shapes here that want to be black and a series of shapes that want to be white. And I'm wondering if I couldn't do that better if I cut them in vinyl and stuck them down. So that's something else I've got in the back of my head. So we are going to just start putting things down. I've got all of my decal sets and everything else around me. Micro set here. And we're going to start laying. See if that can come off of the, it might need a little bit more water. Let's see, I need a clean brush. And by a clean brush, I mean something that I don't have any paint on, so that I can brush the crystal curve, or the micro set, on them. Now, I sprayed these this morning with a couple coats of clear, and ideally you'd want to leave that dry overnight, but I think we'll be okay. Certainly we'll let the decals dry overnight before we put anything over the top of them, but these are going down pretty, because there's no, I mean, there are no real convoluted shapes that it has to go over. Everything's laying pretty flat. I think we'll be okay to not have to worry too much about whether or not that gloss coat is set up for a day. So let's get the air bubbles out from underneath this. Surface tension is your friend on these, because once they start wrapping around, they're going to find their own level. But you do wonder with decals of this age how well they are going to, how well they're going to work. These ones seem to be working just fine. And I'm just riding it on the crest of this raised shape here. And I am positioning the overlap to be on the bottom, so that when this is sitting on the top of the Swift, you're not going to see any overlap on the decals. Yeah, that went down just fine. You get the tip of Q out and squeegee out some air bubbles. Trying to center that on the raised ridge here. these are a little bit narrower than the ridge, so there's a little bit on either side. And like I said, we're just making sure the overlap is on the underside here. Yeah, that's looking good. We're going to let these set for a while. The white ones that I put on here are from the other set, but you can see how these ones have turned out, and the red hash mark ones are a little wider than the raised section, which is good. Something has snagged. I've done an ugly here. I need to fix. Yeah, see, I'm setting this down on top of itself, which is not good. It should be propped up on something else. This is what happens when you try to do things when you need one more hand than you've got. Let me pick this back up and do one last quality check on it before I set it to the side. Again, if I had not painted a gray underneath this decal, it would have completely disappeared into the red paint. So that's a good and a yay and a happy that I did that. We're letting these white ones settle down. They are of a different manufacturer, and they're a little bit wider than they probably should have been. I should have cut these narrower. But I'm hoping that when they settle down, they will wrap around the sides of the raised ring here. The nice thing about these being a pretty even tube is that they will hopefully settle down. I don't want to fuss with them too much. I'm letting them overlap on the bottom here. Touching decals with my fingers and pulling them back off. I don't want to be doing that. This is why I don't want to be. I generally don't have the camera running when I am putting decals down for this reason, because it requires all of my concentration and dexterity to do it, and it's not good if I am also trying to think of the next thing to say. Okay, that's good, that's good. Trying to keep everything nice and even. That's good, that's still looking good. Again, the ugly parts will be towards the bottom here, because that's the part that sits on the framework, and I won't have to worry about looking at that. Okay, so we're good with these. I need to prop this up. Oh, sorry, you didn't need to see that. That's just a bunch of sanding sticks going awry. I need to prop this up in such a way that there is no pressure on the decals while it is sitting. So I have had some success with using two of those bottles that are the same height. Let me see if I can repeat that magic. Yes. Okay, so that's sitting there to behave. I'm just going to catch any water droplets here that might be in the way. Take one last gander at it while things are still fluid enough. Okay, you're good. So now we're going to do the striping on this, and this is going to get some black striping. I'm going to try out some orange striping, and I need to know how long a piece of this needs to be. It needs to be this long, and that is, got my handy ruler out here, that is Yeah, that's that long. Okay, if I can just keep that measurement in my head when I am cutting these, then I know I will have enough for the entire 3 sides of that spinal piece. Now, I noticed on the instructions, this is the predominant thing, this white line here, that's a predominant thing. So I've got some white decal that I can work for that. I just need to make sure that I am consistent in the placement of that. Then the rest of these, I'm going to try some of this stuff going on back here. Well, I have finished doing the decals on the spine and the tanks for today. And using these pre-made, or the pre-made, or the generic stripe decals, shall we say, I have learned several things. I have learned that the orange ones are the most finicky. They are the ones most likely to crack or rip or bend. I noticed that the black are probably the strongest ones. They are the most resilient. They'll take the most punishment. I have noticed that the white ones, and that was the important lesson I wanted to see, the white ones are sufficiently white that they will cover up completely over the red and orange behind it. I was concerned that maybe the white printing was not strong enough, that we were going to have an issue with that, but no, they seem to be just fine. I have learned that I don't need to trim them to the exact stripe like I thought I have, that they have their own transfer layer. I mean, it's cut to match the stripe. I don't have to. The other thing I learned that I was more curious about than anything else was how well they were going to react to each other being overlapped onto each other, because that's what I have to do when it comes time to do the landing gear ones, because it's a bunch of colors next to each other, and I was afraid they were not going to play nicely together and not going to allow me to overlap them, but they do. So those are the important things. So we're going to let all these dry, and we're going to come back to them in the morning, and we're going to do the decals on the 2 side tanks. That is the rest of the body, which is outside. I've put a gloss coat on it, and I'm letting that dry, and I should probably bring that in by now. I have succumbed to the little-known corollary of the potato chip rule. The potato chip rule states you can't stop at one. I can't only eat just one. Well, the decal laws is very much like that. You can't stop at just one decal. So I've been putting down if the eyes are the windows to the soul, then Taylor finally has some soul, because I put the eye decals down, and these were ones that came with the kit, and as such they are inkjet printed, which means the blacks aren't truly as black as they could be, and you have to be very careful that you don't scratch the ink, which I may have done in a couple of spots right there, so I might have to touch those up. But everything else is coming along. I started on the bottom part strictly because I wanted to get these white stripes in to match the stripes that go on the top. Now, unfortunately, since the top doesn't line up exactly where it should, that means the stripes don't line up exactly where they should. And in a free world, this would come back like that, but it wants to sit a little bit forward, so I might be tempted to push it back and glue it in place, but that's where it's going to want to sit, so the decals are slightly off of that. Now, I'm dreading doing this guy tomorrow, the one that's got the two, or the red, the red and the orange next to each other. That's going to be a challenge. And of course, this goes on the top of everything like that. So that is a fully stacked Swift with a lot of the decals on, but we don't want to put too much pressure on those decals yet. Decaling day 2. Welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday. How you been? Working on the landing gear decals. Now, I wish I'd have saved some of my Eagle landing gear decals because they would have come in very handy here. But I bit the bullet, did the tough thing right away, and that was to do all of the tiny decals that go on the head. Now, that certainly could have been provided as a single decal in the kit, and I wouldn't have cried about it. But since it was just straight runs, I just took my time and some tiny pinstriping and duplicated what was in one of the photos there, and then I added some greebly decals around the rest of the head, and I think that's going to be sufficient. I still need to touch up a couple of those spots where the black inkjet ink didn't cover. Starting to, like I said, work on these guys, and I miscalculated the first time with the fat red ones, and I didn't make them long enough, so you'll see I have to patch the underside of those where they're not quite wrapping all the way around. But I found the best way to do these ones was to make them longer the second time around, wrap them around each other, let them dry, and then in places where there's like a red stripe next to that, we're going to put that over top of it, and it'll look like it's a red stripe with an orange stripe on either side of it. I believe these are long enough. I think I've cracked the code on how long they need to be. These ones here are going to be minuscule. They're going to be very, very short. And I think what I'm going to do in that case is just roll everything over and put them on from the underside. But I'm trying to work my way from the fat ones down to the skinny ones, using these examples in the instructions, but not being so slavishly dedicated to them that's all I do. See, this is the one I had to recreate, and I thought it was a double line the whole way, but it's not. It's orange and red on the top, and then orange, then red, then red. Yeah, I'm seeing where these little double circles and double doodads need to go, and I think that means there's a couple more on the spine I need to pull out. But let me actually, you know what, while some of these are drying, I could go back and get those, because they all get the if I could find them where I put them, they get these greebly decals. So let me go get the tanks and the spine, and I'll see what I can add to that. I believe that I have spent enough time in pinstripe hell that I have earned my reprieve. So I am done with the pinstriping on the landing gear. I've done some goodly stripage there, and I've matched it all around, and I think that's as much as I'm gonna do. So we're gonna let these dry. I'm going to let it dry outside. It's been soaking, raining all freaking day. It's the kind of day that makes you not want to get out of bed. But we're going to let those dry. I need to go out and get a new can of clear flat top coat. So I'll do that at the same time as I am getting lunch. It's coming up on 1 o'clock. It's time for a late lunch. And then we can get a flat coat on the tanks and on the spine, but not on this. We may let this dry overnight before we put the flat coat on it. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Thursday. It's another one of those combo days, because not only is it the gateway to the weekend, but it is also the last and final day on this build. I'm sorry. I always do this, and I start cleaning as soon as I turn the camera on. It's like company's coming and I'm not ready. But we are about to finish up on the Swift, and we're bringing it to a swift and decisive end. I have put a coat of the flat clear on the body. Did that last night before I laid my wee heady down. And it's dried up and everything's good on that. So we're ready to do some final construction. Now this morning I added some tiny details. I put some what I'm using, I used wire, but put some hosage on these tanks and into the landing gear. It's indicated on the instructions to do that. I didn't go as elaborately as they did, and I also did not paint them white. I just didn't. I like the color. There's enough white on this kit as there is. I wanted to give it a spot of color. But I'm basically done to this point. Everything has, you can see the nice flat finish. Everything has settled down nicely. All the decals are looking good. So I am going to mix up a wee bit of epoxy, because we've got some irregular shapes here, and if I can fill that bottom with epoxy and sit that down into it, it'll make a nice bed rather than trying to use CA on that. And then we can pop these guys on top and we will be well and truly finished. So I've got the 5-minute epoxy out. I just need to whip up a little bit of it, and we'll get on with the getting on. And then we'll do, we'll come back after this and we'll do some detail shots. Here is the final Swift, and ain't she a beauty? I think it turned out pretty darn nice for what we had to do to get it to that stage. And I didn't pull out the turntable because I can't sit it on the starry background with the turntable, so I'm going to manually turn it. And yes, the fact that I can pick it up like this means everything is epoxied together. And that is, there's probably your beauty angle right there. That is the Swift story. And there's the underneath. So you want to call it a Swift kick in the pants, you want to call it a Tom Swift of a build, a Taylor Swift of a build. This was the garage kit Swift. I mean, it's not, of course, this will, like I said to one of my online friends, this will guarantee that Round T will probably make a kit of this now, because I've spent this time on this garage kit. Means they must be developing a commercial version. And that, good friends and neighbors, finishes the Swift build. I knew it would go fairly swiftly this week once we had the building issues knocked out and all we had to do was paint the thing. I think it turned out rather nicely. I don't know why I was resisting getting on with it, but now that I'm glad I've got it finished and can sit it proudly next to the other Eagles and Hawks and 1999 ships that I have. So yes, a wonderful addition to the collection. So next week, while you're seeing me here, I am at the IPMS Nationals in Virginia. So stop by, say hi if you're in the immediate neighborhood and can hurry your bones over there, because this is going to go up Friday night, which will only leave Saturday morning. And the show's over on Saturday. So if you come by Saturday, say hello. If not, I'm sure we'll run into each other sooner or later down the road. Until then, y'all be good. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. Be smart. Be safe. Be back here next time. I don't know. I think we're probably due for a figure next week, but I don't know which one it'll be. So we'll find out together. See you then.